The truths contained in religious doctrines are after all so distorted and systematically disguised, writes Sigmund Freud, that the mass of humanity cannot recognize them as truth. In this video, we shall attempt to uncover some of these truths, for this is the task set forth in the second part of Joseph Campbell's seminal A Hero with 1,000 Faces. In the first part, linked in the description, we learnt about the hero's journey, but in this part, Campbell discusses the cosmogonic cycle, the process of the creation and destruction of the universe and the human spirit. To achieve his task, Campbell draws on a host of mythological stories from various times and cultures, interpreting them with a psychoanalytic eye. By learning to read again the symbolic language of the ancients, Campbell says, we may unearth the universal system of basic ideas by which man has lived through the millennia. I hope you enjoy. Chapter 1. Emanations. Myths hold psychological significance, and modern psychoanalysts offer varying interpretations of them. Nevertheless, there are common principles describing how the patterns and logic of myths correspond to those of dreams. Like dreams, myths symbolically express the unconscious desires, fears, and tensions underlying human behavior, but unlike dreams, figures in myths are consciously controlled and used to communicate traditional wisdom. Across cultures, a universal doctrine holds that all things and beings are manifestations of a ubiquitous power, known by various names, such as energy, mana, Wakanda, Shakti, or God. In the psyche, this power is termed libido, and in the cosmos, it is the structure and flux of the universe. Symbols in myths, and in the unconscious, are interpreted as metaphors of man's destiny, hope, faith, and mystery. Like the biblical image of the fall of man, the hero's journey represents the descent into unconsciousness, and the eventual return to the light of superconsciousness, in which one achieves illumination. Mythology teaches that the universe originates from a timeless source and later returns to it. The gods control the flow of power from this source and represent its laws, existing only for the duration of the world. The cycle of the universe repeats itself, including periods of destruction. For instance, the Jains believe in a 12-age cycle of time, divided into 2 sets of 6. The first set starts with a paradisiacal period, and ends with the deterioration of the world in the 4th period. They believe that the 5th period started in 522 BC and lasts for 21,000 years. The 6th period will be the worst, and the descending series will end with 7 days of rain, before the ascending series starts again. The cosmogonic cycle is a myth in Oriental philosophy that represents the passage of universal consciousness, from deep sleep to waking and back through dream to timeless darkness. Hindus use the holy syllable Aum to symbolize this mystery, with A representing waking consciousness, U representing dream consciousness, M representing deep sleep, and the silence surrounding the syllable called the fourth, which directs the mind to the ultimate mystery that fills and surrounds all existence. According to St. Thomas Aquinas, creation myths convey both a sense of doom and the imperishable nature of the universe. Mythology views forms as reaching their peak, breaking and returning, yet it also highlights the imperishable ground out of which forms emerge. Mythology evokes a dreamlike quality, using images that range from sublime to ridiculous, challenging the mind's normal evaluations. The Maori creation chant and Hebrew Kabbalah describe the process of creation as emanating from a void. The levels of creation correspond to the spiritual strata known in meditation and represent the bottomlessness of the dark night of the soul. In the 8th century BC, Samkhya philosophers also believed that space condensed from the void, giving rise to air, fire, water, and earth, each element possessing a corresponding sense function. Likewise, in Chinese mythology, the 5 sages emerged from a ball of chaos and represent 5 elements. Cosmogonic emanations create space and life, represented as male and female. In a Polynesian myth, an egg containing the Sky Father and Earth Mother describes creation. The cosmic egg is also found in Greek Orphic, Egyptian, Finnish, Buddhistic, and Japanese myths, and symbolizes the world's space and the life force of nature. It may also reveal an anthropomorphic figure who created the world. Myths from Egypt and India describe the creation of the world by the demiurge through meditation, suggesting that the individual and the progenitor are one. The Hebrew Zohar and Plato's Symposium suggest that souls are composed of male and female parts, which are united at the time of marriage. Love is thus the realization of the unity beneath the illusion of two-ness and the science of beauty everywhere. Mythology reveals two modes, one where the demiurgic forces continue to operate, and the other where they give up the initiative and set themselves against further progress. The Maori story of Rangi and Papa and the Greek myth of Uranos and Gaia illustrate this theme. The myth of the cosmic couple, represented as the sky and earth, exists in many cultures, and the child usually separates the two. The Norse Edda and the Babylonian tablets of creation tell how the generative source is carved up and slain by the young warrior sons to create the structure of the world. The Babylonian myth of Marduk and Tiamat highlights the paradox of dual focus, where the world is a harmonious creation from the perspective of the source, but a chaotic and painful experience from the perspective of created forms. The fall of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden represents this shift in perspective. Chapter 2. The Virgin Birth. Myths often have stories of unusual conceptions and virgin births, like the Buddha descending as a milk-white elephant, or the Aztec god approaching Coatlicue in the form of a feathered ball. The Mother of the World is a transformative medium for the Father's spirit to enter the earthly realm. She represents the primal element in Genesis and Hindu myths, and is the inspiration for creation. The goddess can represent life and death, taking on different forms based on the created world's perspective. In Sumero-Babylonian mythology, she embodies the phases of Venus, including the morning star, evening star, and moon's consort. Similarly, a Southeast African myth tells of the Venus Mother coordinating with the cosmogonic cycle's first stages of creation. When priests and kings of divine revelation guide people's consciousness, they lose sight of the significance of human agony, leading to societal mistakes and disasters. However, myth often portrays people yearning for a personality that embodies the incarnate figure. In the story of Mary, for example, she prepares a dwelling for the Lord in her womb. This theme is prevalent in many cultures, such as in Colombia, where two virgin daughters desire to be impregnated by the sun to bring about the miracle of the incarnation. One daughter gives birth to an emerald that transforms into a living creature celebrated as the child of the sun. In Hindu mythology, Parvati, the daughter of a mountain king, seeks to overthrow the tyrant Taraka by winning the love of the high god Shiva. A prophecy states that only Shiva's son can defeat Taraka, but Shiva is unlikely to father a child. Parvati subjects herself to extreme austerities, eventually meeting a Brahmin youth who reveals himself as Shiva in disguise. Chapter 3. Transformations of the Hero. The cosmogonic cycle has moved from gods to heroes, as evidenced in creation myths and legends. Cultural heroes like the Chinese Fu Xi and Shen Nung appear in the legendary past of various cultures. Fu Xi taught his people skills learned from a monster's tablet, while Shen Nung, who was conceived miraculously, found the antidotes to 70 poisonous plants in a day. In the past, serpent kings and minotaurs helped establish civilization with the emperor's power, but superhuman beings are no longer needed. Now, a perfect human spirit is required to lead and inspire the masses. Huang Ti, the Yellow Emperor, was such a leader in ancient China. He learned from the supernatural realm and ruled for a century, creating a golden age. He appointed 6 ministers who helped him establish a calendar, math, and crafts. Even mythical creatures like the phoenix and unicorn appeared to attest to the reign's perfection, before Huang Ti died at age 111. The snake-bodied, bull-headed hero symbolizes the creative power of nature, while the human hero must descend to become heroic. Heroic deeds are often portrayed as predestined from birth, with the central adventure as its climax. King Sargon of Agad, Chandragupta of the Maurya dynasty, and Pope Gregory the Great are all examples of historical figures who became heroes due to their extraordinary deeds. Charlemagne fled to Saracen Spain as a child, where he converted the king's daughter to Christianity. Upon his return to France, he overthrew his persecutors and became king. Legend says that he will awaken in his country's time of need. The theme of infant exile and return is common in legend, folktale, and myth. When the hero is a great patriarch, wizard, prophet, or incarnation, the wonders can develop without limits. In Hebrew legend, Abraham's mother left the city with him in fear after King Nimrod ordered all newborn boys to be killed. There are also many folk tales that feature an outcast or handicapped protagonist, such as an abused youngest child or an ugly duckling. The child of destiny faces obscurity, danger, and darkness, but may encounter helpful presences such as angels or animals. Extraordinary capacity is required to survive these experiences, as demonstrated by the infancies of various legendary figures. Krishna, a revered Hindu savior, performed remarkable feats during his exile in Gokula and Vrindavan. One feat involved Krishna's defeat of a goblin named Putana, who had disguised herself as a beautiful woman. Another time, Yasoda, Krishna's foster mother, realized her son's divine nature when she saw the entire universe in his mouth. After Krishna saved the herding folk from a storm, by lifting up Mount Govardhan, even Indra, the Hindu god of thunder, realized that Krishna was an incarnation of the primal being and submitted to him. The childhood cycle of the hero's journey concludes with the hero's return or recognition, which reveals their true character, and often leads to a crisis as new powers emerge. For example, in Irish mythology, the hero Cuchulainn displays his power at a young age by defeating a group of boys and later conquering a fortress. He is described as a beautiful boy with unique physical features, but when in battle frenzy, he becomes a fearsome being with fiery breath and projecting blood. The hero's birthplace or place of exile is considered the center of the world, from which the universe expands in concentric circles. In a Yakut myth, the white youth awakens in a place where a giant tree converses with the beings of the sky. He asks the tree for a wife and the blessing to travel. The goddess of the tree emerges and offers him her milk, which increases his strength and protects him from harm. From this spot, the hero departs to realize his destiny and pour creative power into the world. The hero's journey involves defeating the dragon of the status quo, who holds on to power for its own personal gain. The hero emerges from obscurity to champion progress, while the enemy represents the keeper of the past. The tyrant is doomed by his own pride and is ultimately tricked by the hero. The hero continuously shatters the crystallizations of the moment, including monsters from the primeval past and human tyrants who cause widespread misery. Legends of heroes slaying monsters abound in folklore and mythology, and the tradition of slaying monsters was a common theme among ancient warrior kings, who used it to justify their conquests. The hero's success is often symbolized by a woman who represents his destiny, and in many heroic tales, the hero must overcome obstacles and complete tasks before being allowed to marry. The miracle of destiny itself can also aid the hero by dissolving barriers on their path. The hero's role is to carry on the legacy of the world's creation and reveal the presence of the divine. To achieve this, they must undergo tests of self-discovery, and often to discover their unknown father. These tests can take various forms, such as persistent questioning or physical challenges. Once the hero has been blessed by the father, they become a respected leader, but there is still a risk of deterioration. The Zoroastrian legend of Emperor Jemshid illustrates this point, where arrogance leads to tyranny and the loss of community values. In the father's mansion, there are two levels of initiation. The first leads the son to return as an emissary, while the second leads to the realization that the son and father are one. The latter is the origin of world redeemers and divine incarnations. Such myths are vast, and their words carry authority. The task of the incarnation is to refute the tyrant ogre's pretensions by being a direct manifestation of the law, enacting the hero's life to slay the monster with the freedom of a mere thought. For example, Krishna and Balarama were protected from Kans, the cruel uncle of Krishna, and his demons. Later they killed Kans and comforted his wives with their wisdom. The hero's task is to defeat the father figure and release vital energy to feed the universe either in accordance with or against the father's will. However, the Slayer and the dragon are two aspects of the same entity, and the hero may become a tyrant unless he sacrifices himself. The ultimate revelations of mythology are often veiled, but the savior figure who eliminates the tyrant father and assumes the crown steps into his sire's stead. Once the son realizes he and the father are one, the figures dissolve back into the primal chaos. There is one more type of hero to mention, the saint, or ascetic, who renounces the world. This one lives in solitude, meditates, and abandons love and hate. Such heroes become worthy of becoming one with the imperishable. Myth is merely the penultimate word for them, with silence being the ultimate. The hero's journey ends with their death or departure, which represents the essence of their life. To be a true hero, they must accept death. In a dream, Abraham sees death but refuses to go with him. Instead, God takes Abraham's soul to heaven. Death does not signify the end of the hero's existence, as they may return in another form or arise in the hour of destiny. Chapter 4. Dissolutions. Each individual has a hero of great power within them, represented by the king within, and not the physical self visible in the mirror. This concept is present in many prayers for the dead, which aim to help the person return to their original knowledge of the world-creating divinity within their heart. Many myths, including the coffin texts of ancient Egypt, mention a dangerous journey of the soul with obstacles to be passed, such as monster guardians. An Aztec prayer warns the departed of dangers on the way to the skeleton god of the dead, Tzontemoc, and gives them certain papers to help them pass along their journey. Other cultures have their own tales of the afterlife, such as the Chinese story of crossing the fairy bridge with the Jade Maiden and the Golden Youth, and the multi-level afterlife of the Hindus. Dante's Divina Commedia represents levels of life value through Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso, while the Egyptian Book of the Dead follows the journey of the deceased as they are reborn as Osiris and face dangers on their way to the throne of the judge. The soul grows to its full potential by assimilating the deities previously thought to be separate from it. The universe and individuals undergo cyclical dissolution and renewal. The Mayan codices record cosmic cycles and predicts the world's end with graphic details. Similarly, the Viking poetic Edda tells of a final battle featuring gods, giants, demons, dwarves, and elves, which ends with the world's destruction. And Jesus warned of false prophets and the signs of the end of the world. Epilogue: Myth and Society. Myths cannot be fully interpreted, and there is no final system for doing so. Mythology has been interpreted in many different ways, including as an attempt to explain the natural world, as poetic fantasy, as allegorical instruction, as a group dream, as a reflection of the human psyche, and as God's revelation. In reality, mythology serves the individual, the race, and the age in various ways. Society shapes the individual through techniques of life, language, and ideas. Tribal ceremonies validate social duties, and rites of initiation teach the essential oneness of the individual and the group. Seasonal festivals prepare the community to endure nature's hardships, and these ceremonies teach submission to destiny and enhance one's connection to society. Mythologically instructed communities use symbols for continuity, but exile from the community can lead to self-discovery. Techniques such as asceticism, meditation, and detachment shift the focus of consciousness towards the core of being. The goal is to realize one's essence and be free to wander the world. Separateness disappears, and selfishness or altruism become irrelevant, as the individual becomes reborn in identity with the meaning of the universe. The modern age, with its emphasis on self-determination, science, and technology, has led to the collapse of traditional symbols. The challenge for the modern hero is to rediscover a coordinated soul, and this cannot be achieved by rejecting modern progress. Today's community is global, not just national, and nationalism can be a hindrance. Traditional religions are also inadequate for the task at hand. The problem of humanity today is to help people mature in the face of modern challenges. To achieve this, we must transform the entire social order to reveal the universal God-man that exists within us all. This transformation cannot be planned, but is being worked out through a frightening process in every living psyche. The balance of mystery and danger has shifted, leading to the breakdown of inherited religious beliefs. In the past, people found unity through mimicking dangerous animals and plants. Later, they celebrated the heavens with symbolic festivals. Nowadays, people look inward, and the hero's quest is to reconcile with their own divine essence. The hero can't wait for society to change, they must lead it. Every individual faces the supreme challenge of carrying their own cross through personal despair and salvation. And that brings us to the end of this video. I do hope you found something here insightful, and I invite you to join us again when we explore another influential philosophical, psychological, or mystical text in the near future. If you'd like to support the channel to produce more videos like this, please consider sharing us with a friend, buying us a coffee, or simply commenting, liking, and subscribing. We've got some great things lined up for the channel, and I look forward to having you along for the ride. Now please go on and have a marvellous day. Cheerio.